Thor's Visit to Jotunheim by Faith Clardy and Helen Andrews.
I want to stop it. Who is Thor?
Thor was the Norse god of thunder and sky. He came from Germanic mythology. Who is Thor's family? Thor's mother's name is Jord. She was a goddess of earth.
Thor's father's name was Odin, the chief god of the mythology.
Where did Thor come from?
Thor came from the common people, but his father came from the higher classes.
Thor's Visit to Jotunheim. One day the god Thor, with his servant Thiafi, and accompanied by Loki, set out on a journey to Giants Country, also known as Jotunheim.
When night came on, they found themselves in a forest, and searched on all sides for a place where they might pass the night, and at last came to a very large hall, which they entered and stayed for the night.
Here they lay down to sleep, but towards midnight they were alarmed by an earthquake which shook the whole edifice.
Thor, rising up, called on his companions to look for a place of safety. On the right they found an adjoining chamber, into which the others entered, but Thor remained at the doorway with his mallet in his hand, prepared to defend himself, whatever might happen. A terrible groaning was heard during that night, and in the morning Thor went out and found lying near him a giant who slept near them. It is said that for once Thor was afraid to use his mallet, and as the giant soon walked up, Thor contacted him with simply asking him his name. "My name is Skirmire," said the giant, "but I need not ask thy name, for I know that thou art the god Thor. But what has become of my glove?" Thor then realized that the place they had slept was the thumb of the giant's glove. Skirmire then proposed that they should travel in company. After eating breakfast together, Thor, Thiafi, Loki, and the giant Skirmire all set out. They walked the whole day, and at night the giant chose a place under a large oak tree in which they stayed the night. Sleep came not to Thor that night. When Skirmire snored again so loud the forest re-echoed with the noises, he arose, gasping for his mallet, and launched it such force at the giant's skull that it made a deep dent. Skirmire then woke up thinking a bird had hit him in the head. After telling the giant nothing had happened, he fell back asleep. Thor then smashed his mallet in the giant's head with such violence that it made a dent in his head. They then woke up and set back on foot to a city called Uthgard. They reached the city of Uthgard only to find that everything there was giant. On arriving, they entered the city, and seeing a large palace before them with the door wide open, they went in and found a number of men sitting on the benches in the hall. They then came across the king, and he said, "If I do not mistake me, this must be the god Thor." The king then said he would have a running match and called a young man named Hugo to run against Thiafi. In the first course, Hugo was so far ahead that he turned back and met him not far from the starting point. They then ran the second and third time, but Thiafi did not do any better. Utgard Loki asked Thor to prove himself and his power. Thor answered that he would try a drinking match with anyone. Youthguard Loki told his cupbearer to bring a large horn that was filled with a drink. He told Thor that a good drinker will empty the cup in one gulp, a man can finish it in two, and a puny drinker would finish it in 3 gulps. Thor then began to drink the drink and was not able to finish it in 1 gulp, not even 2. He went for the 3rd and still could not. Since he could not do that, Utgard Loki gave him a new challenge. The challenge involved him lifting a cat from the ground. The cat came in the hall, and Thor reached down with all of his strength to lift him up, but he couldn't. Youthguard Loki expected that Thor would not be able to lift the giant cat. The next morning, Thor and his team dressed themselves and prepared to leave. When leaving, Utgard tells Thor he thought he was a very strong man, but Thor says he put shame to himself and his name. Utgard tells Thor that all the stuff that he made him do were all very hard, and that he should never come near him again or he will defend himself with illusion. On hearing these words, Thor in a rage laid hold of his mallet and would have launched at him, but Utgard Loki had disappeared. When Thor would have returned to the city to destroy it, he found nothing around him but an empty plain.